Every man dreams of victory, but most men crumble at the sight of failure. They run, they retreat, they cry. But the truth is this: failure isn't the end, it's the beginning of who you're meant to become. You're either the man who folds under pressure or the one who sharpens his sword with every loss. Your pain, it's not punishment, it's preparation. People talk about success like it's a trophy you stumble across by accident. Like one day you wake up and you're rich, powerful, respected. But what they don't show you is the graveyard of failures buried underneath every so-called overnight success. They'll clap for you at the finish line, but they'll never tell you about the nights you were face down in the dirt. And that's the problem with most of you. You want the win, but not the wounds. You want the destination without crawling through hell to get there. You're addicted to ease. You've been told that struggle is optional. No, struggle is the entry fee. Failure is the tuition you pay to become someone worth remembering. You think because you failed once, that's it? You think a loss defines you? Then you've already lost. Because real men don't avoid failure, they hunt it. They seek it out like a blacksmith seeks fire. Because they understand this truth: pressure creates precision. You don't sharpen a blade with a pillow, you grind it against stone, and life will grind you again and again until you either shatter or shine. It's not cruelty, it's calibration. The universe doesn't punish you with failure, it presents you with a test. Are you serious or are you soft? That's what every setback is asking, and most people answer by quitting. They think success is a staircase made of gold. No. It's a ladder made of broken rungs, rusted nails, and slippery steps. You climb it by falling, by bleeding, by tearing your hands open until your palms are scarred with lessons. Because every time you fall and get back up, you earn something, not a trophy, something better. You earn identity, you earn depth, you earn grit. You can't buy those things. You can't fake them. You can't talk them into existence. You can only bleed for them. And failure makes sure of it. You see, failure isn't your enemy, it's your mirror. It shows you exactly who you are when the applause stops, when the lights go out, and when the voices cheering turn to silence. That's the moment where the boys get filtered out from the men. And in that silence, if you listen, really listen, you'll hear the truth. You needed this. You needed to lose. You needed to be embarrassed. You needed to be humbled. Because ego is loud, but growth is silent, and growth only comes after collapse. It doesn't show up when you win. It shows up when everything falls apart and you're still standing, fists clenched, eyes locked on the next round. The reason failure is so feared is because it exposes. It strips you down. It shows you how unprepared you really are. But that's the point. That's the gift. When you fail, you don't just learn what you did wrong, you learn what you lack. You learn what must be built. That's how warriors are born, not through comfort, not through praise, but through raw confrontation with their own shortcomings. Failure doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means you've outgrown who you used to be. And if that doesn't inspire you, nothing will. People ask me, how do I become mentally strong? I say, start failing. Fall flat, embarrass yourself, lose, get rejected, get laughed at. Why? Because every time that happens and you keep moving, you reinforce your psyche with bulletproof resilience. The kind of strength that doesn't come from wins, it comes from surviving the losses. If you can fail, stare it in the face, and come back sharper, then you become dangerous. You become someone the world can't control. And trust me, when you reach that level, even your failures will scare people. I know what it feels like to hit the ground, to pour your soul into something and watch it crumble. But I also know this: you're still breathing. And that means you're still in the game. You haven't lost unless you quit. And if you never quit, then every failure just becomes a chapter in your comeback story. That's how kings are made, not in comfort, but in the chaos of trial and error. Real power is built in the ashes of failed attempts. So the next time life slaps you down, don't cry about it. Don't post a sad quote. Don't crawl to your friends looking for pity. Stand up, straighten your back, and say, perfect, I needed that. Let it hurt, let it teach, let it mold you, because this is the game, and the game is brutal. But if you learn to play through failure, to stand tall when others fall, to grow when others shrink, you'll become something no one can stop. And that, right there, is why failure is not optional. It is essential. I remember being broke, not just financially, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally. I remember waking up in a room that felt like a prison, cold air, stale silence, a bed that hadn't been made in weeks because I didn't see the point. Days blurred together because there was no structure, no purpose, just a thick cloud of failure hanging over my life. I wasn't some weak coward. I was a man with ambition. But ambition without direction is like a car with no steering wheel. I had dreams, massive ones, but every attempt to chase them ended in collapse. Business failed, relationships failed, my body was weak, my mind was fogged. Every move I made backfired. I wasn't living, I was surviving, barely. And in those moments, the world doesn't pat you on the back. It ignores you. It forgets you. People stop replying. They stop inviting. They stop checking in. You become invisible, and that silence is deafening. But here's the part no one talks about. That darkness is where you meet your real self. Not the version of you that pretends to have it together on social media. Not the one that throws on a smile in public. The real one. The one that sits in silence with regret. The one who looks in the mirror and asks, what the hell happened to you? That version of me was born from failure. And it was in that space when I had absolutely nothing that I discovered everything. I found out what I was made of, not by winning, but by failing harder than I thought I could survive. And somehow I was still here. Broken, yes, but breathing. And that meant I had a chance. People assume success is built in moments of triumph. But real success is forged in those quiet, ugly, lonely chapters no one posts about. You think the winners you admire got there by skipping failure? No. They waded through oceans of it. They drowned in it. They got betrayed. They got rejected. They got laughed at. And every time it happened, they built another layer, a layer of toughness, a layer of insight, a layer of silence that whispered, keep going. You're not done. That's the process. It's not glamorous. It's not pretty, but it's necessary because failure doesn't break real men. It purifies them. I'll never forget the night I decided enough was enough. I was staring at the ceiling, broke, with zero momentum. I had every reason to give up, but something shifted, something primal. I whispered to myself, they don't get to write my story, I do. I stood up, not because I had a plan, but because I had resolve. I didn't know what tomorrow held, but I knew what I wouldn't tolerate anymore. And that's the spark failure gives you. When it's done properly, not when you use it as an excuse, but when you use it as a turning point, a catalyst, the slap in the face you didn't want but absolutely needed. You see, failure doesn't show up to destroy your life. It shows up to destroy your illusions. It removes the lies you've told yourself. It rips away the comfort blanket and shows you how far you drifted from your potential. That sting you feel after failing, that's truth. That's life saying, you're playing small, wake up. And if you're strong enough to hear it, not just emotionally, but intellectually, if you can extract the data, not just the pain, then you come back with weapons, not hope, weapons. A sharper mindset, a thicker skin, a new pace, a deeper level of clarity, and that makes you a threat. I look back at the man I used to be and I thank God he failed. Because without those losses, I never would have built the engine I have now. I never would have developed the obsession, the intensity, the standards. Failure gave me those things, and not just once, over and over again. Every level of life has a new devil. Every chapter has a new lesson. The only constant is failure. You either run from it or you shake its hand and say, let's get to work. That's the mentality. So if you're going through hell right now, if you're drowning in debt, self-doubt, betrayal, fatigue, understand something. This isn't the end of your story. It's the start of the real one, because pressure doesn't crush diamonds, it creates them. And right now, every failure you're enduring is building the foundation for the most dominant version of you, but only if you refuse to quit, only if you turn that pain into discipline, that doubt into drive, and that loss into leverage. People will eventually see the victory, but they'll never understand the cost. And that's okay, because you'll know what it took. You'll know why you're unshakable. And you'll know deep in your soul that every failure along the way wasn't a curse. It was the blessing you didn't recognize at the time. That's why failure is essential, not just for growth, not just for toughness, but for transformation. You don't become a high-level man by getting it right the first time. You become one by getting it wrong again and still standing, still swinging, still believing. Because when you've been through the worst and you're still here, there's nothing left to fear and everything left to conquer. The scariest thing in life isn't failing. The scariest thing is waking up one day and realizing you never even tried, that you lived the same year 60 times and called it a life, that the dreams you once felt burning in your chest have faded into background noise because you let comfort sedate your ambition. And you'll lie to yourself, telling stories about how it just wasn't the right time, how you were waiting for things to settle, how you were being realistic. But deep down, beneath all the excuses, is a silent scream of regret that only gets louder with age. And one day, it'll be deafening. Most men die at 25 and aren't buried until 75. That's the truth. They die the moment they trade risk for routine. The moment they stop taking swings because missing hurts more than not swinging at all. But here's the truth nobody wants to face. Avoiding failure doesn't protect you. It destroys you slowly. It strips you of your courage. It sterilizes your potential. It turns you into a spectator in a game you were born to play. And while you sit there trying to avoid the embarrassment of falling, time keeps moving, opportunities fade, energy declines, and before you know it, the door's shut, the chapter's closed. Not because you weren't capable, but because you chose comfort over conquest. Fear is a liar. It whispers that failure means you're not good enough. That one mistake proves you're not cut out for greatness, but that's just noise. Failure isn't proof of weakness. It's the evidence that you had the guts to try. The only people who never fail are the ones too scared to attempt anything real. You want a safe life? You'll get it. But it'll cost you everything that could have made life worth living. You'll be surrounded by safety nets, but haunted by the feeling that you left your destiny untouched. And that kind of pain, the pain of knowing you could have been more and chose not to, is far worse than the sting of any temporary setback. You think you have time. That's the most dangerous lie of all. You think tomorrow is guaranteed. You think the chances will always be there, but they won't. People die in their sleep. Accidents happen, doors close, markets shift, health fades. Time doesn't pause for your procrastination. Every second you waste dodging failure is a second stolen from your greatness. And no one's gonna save you. No mentor, no friend, no family member is gonna drag you to the top. You either rise or you rot. You either act or you decay. That's the game. And the clock's always ticking. What terrifies me isn't falling. What terrifies me is looking back at the end and realizing I never pushed hard enough to see what I was truly capable of, that I played it small to keep my ego safe, that I spent my life guarding a reputation I hadn't even earned. You know how many men spend their prime years terrified of looking stupid? So they avoid risks, stay quiet, keep their head down, and slowly become invisible. They vanish from the world, not because they weren't talented, but because they lacked the fire to risk failure. They live to be liked instead of respected. And by the time they realize what they've lost, it's already gone. Let me tell you something no one tells you early enough. You don't get second chances at your prime. Once this window closes, it's gone. The energy, the fire, the raw hunger, it doesn't last forever. You've got a limited time to channel it into something real. And every single failure you avoid now will show up later as a version of you you don't recognize. A bitter, beaten man who used to dream. That's the real cost. That's what's on the line. There's a reason failure is part of the process. It separates the delusional from the dedicated. Most people talk. They preach positivity. They wear confidence like a costume. But the second they fall, they vanish. They weren't about it. They were pretending. Real men stay. Real men rise. Real men use every loss as leverage, not because they're fearless, but because they're obsessed. They're too focused to be derailed, too purpose-driven to be stopped. They know failure isn't a dead end, it's a detour to refinement, a sharpening ground, a forge, because the man who has failed more than you has become more than you. Okay, if you're scared of failing, it means you're aiming too low. It means you're thinking too small. Your goals should make your heart race and your mind scream, what if this doesn't work? That's when you know it's big enough. That's when you know you're chasing something that can actually change your life. But if you keep running from the fall, you'll never experience the ride. And you'll never know what it feels like to look at the version of you that made it and say, I earned this. Every scar, every bruise, every sleepless night, it was all worth it. So go fail. Go take the hit. Go get embarrassed. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. Let them count you out. Because one day, they'll see the man who refused to quit and realize they were watching greatness in real time. They'll remember the moment you stumbled, but more importantly, they'll remember the moment you stood back up, stronger, sharper, unshakable. That's what failure gives you, if you have the balls to embrace it. You're not running out of chances, you're running out of time. And failure, as painful as it feels, is the only thing standing between who you are and who you're meant to become. Stop avoiding it, start using it, because your legacy depends on it. Great, you want to win? Then understand this. Failure isn't a curse, it's the toll you pay for entering the arena. The ones who never fail, they've never played. They've stood in the stands their whole lives shouting at the ones who bled. But you, if you failed, it means you stepped in. It means you had the courage to swing. The man in the arena bleeds, but he owns the right to speak. That's the game. That's where the crown is built, in the dirt, in the losses, in the moments when everything says give up, and you refuse. You think champions were born immune to failure? Every legend has scars. Not one of them escaped defeat, but they didn't shrink. They didn't let the L define them. They used it like fuel. They sharpened their vision with every cut, strengthened their will with every blow. The difference between winners and the rest isn't talent. It's hunger. It's obsession. It's the refusal to stay down when life tries to bury you. The most dangerous man in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who's failed 1,000 times and still walks like he's already won. That's the man who's tasted defeat, digested it, and spit it back out like poison. And let me tell you something that will haunt the lazy forever. Every failure you fear is shaping someone else into a monster while you run. While you hide, someone else is taking that hit and becoming unbreakable. You can't buy grit. You can't shortcut hardship. You either earn your scars or you vanish from the battlefield pretending you were never called to fight. People think pain is punishment. They've been lied to. Pain is the gift. Pain wakes you up. It teaches you who you are when everything goes wrong. Anyone can smile when they're winning, but when you're broken, mocked, overlooked, and still get up, that's when you become something different. You were never meant to live soft. You weren't built for mediocrity. You weren't put on this earth to aim low, play safe, die unnoticed. Somewhere deep inside you, there's a storm that's been waiting to be unleashed. And that storm doesn't care about approval. It doesn't care about comfort. It only wants war with your limits. And war is messy. You lose, you get hit, you fall. That's part of becoming dangerous. That's how real power is forged. You want peace, build strength. You want strength, eat failure. Digest loss, get addicted to the grind. Because the truth is, no man who ever achieved anything real did it without crawling through hell to get there. You'll hear people say, maybe it's not for me. Weak words from weak minds. If you're breathing, it's for you. If you're alive, it's your responsibility to fight. Because guess what? Life is going to hit you anyway. Whether you chase greatness or hide in the shadows, pain's coming. So you might as well earn something with it. Might as well cash in your suffering for strength, your heartbreak for resilience, your failure for a future no one can take. Every time you break and rebuild, you're leveling up into someone who can't be moved. You want to know why failure is essential? Because without it, your wins mean nothing. A man who's never tasted defeat has never tasted true success. It's bland, it's hollow. But a man who's clawed his way back from the bottom, who's been laughed at, betrayed, counted out, and still kept going. When that man wins, it echoes, it's real, and it can't be taken from him. Failure is the universe asking you, how bad do you want it? And your response isn't words, it's work. It's getting back up without applause. It's building alone, bleeding in silence, and doing it again tomorrow. There's no hero without struggle. There's no glory without pain. You're not failing because you're cursed. You're failing because you're trying to do something bigger than yourself. And that's rare. That's uncommon. That's what separates lions from sheep. The sheep wants safety, comfort, certainty. The lion wants conquest. The lion knows he might starve, he might bleed, he might lose a battle, but the hunt continues. He doesn't stop until he eats. Be the lion. You don't get to quit. You don't get to sit this one out. Life doesn't care if you're tired. The clock's still ticking. The world's still spinning. The competition is still grinding. And the version of you that wins, the one living the life you dream about, is already out there. Waiting, watching, asking when you'll man up and meet him. That version of you isn't handed anything. He's carved out of adversity. He's shaped by the hits you're afraid to take. And every time you fold, he fades. Every time you step up, he gets closer. This is your test. This is your moment. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being relentless. It's about waking up with fire in your chest and saying, I don't care what happened yesterday. I don't care who doubted me. I don't care how bad it hurts. I'm still coming. That mindset, unstoppable. That drive, untouchable. And the man who builds it by failing forward becomes someone no one can break, ever. So don't just face failure, chase it, invite it, dominate it, let it mold you into someone the world can't ignore. Because failure isn't your enemy, it's your invitation to rise. Now is the moment you stop negotiating with yourself. You've been dancing with comfort, flirting with excuses, and giving failure the wrong definition. But from this second forward, failure is no longer your enemy. It is your ritual. It is your path to domination. You want to be great, then you better be ready to bleed for it. You want to build something that lasts, then be willing to be broken and rebuild again and again until the version of you that stands is the one the world can't ignore. No more soft thinking, no more hiding behind fear. You've got one shot at life and the clock doesn't slow down for cowards. You're waiting for the right time. There is no right time. That fantasy doesn't exist. There's only now. And now is slipping through your hands like sand while you sit on dreams you never had the guts to chase. Get this through your head. There is no success without suffering. You think you'll wake up one day magically disciplined, motivated, wealthy, respected. You think results are gifted to the lazy? You think strength is handed out like candy? No. Every ounce of greatness you will ever achieve has to be taken by force. It must be earned through the kind of pain most people run from. You either suffer for your purpose or suffer because you never had one. This world doesn't care about your potential, only rewards execution. It doesn't applaud intentions, it rewards resilience, sacrifice, commitment. You think failure is a setback? No, failure is the raw material of champions. The more you fail, the more dangerous you become. Because every loss makes you colder. Every rejection builds armor. Every setback teaches you how to adapt. And the man who adapts, the man who evolves, becomes something you can't. You want peace? Get strong. You want strength? Walk straight through the fire and let it melt your ego. Let it forge a man who doesn't flinch when the world throws punches. You are not here to be average. Deep down, you know that. You've always known that. But you've been scared to admit it. Because once you admit that you were made for more, the excuses don't work anymore. The blame doesn't fit. The comfort doesn't taste the same. You either rise or you rot. A man who won't face failure has already accepted defeat. Stop being the background noise to someone else's legacy. The empire you dream of, the power, the freedom, the impact. It's waiting, but it's not given. It's earned in blood, earned through embarrassment, setbacks, loneliness, humiliation, silence, and still showing up when no one believes anymore. You failed, good, then you're on track. You've fallen, excellent. That's how warriors are trained. You've been mocked, perfect. That means you're threatening mediocrity. Let them laugh, let them doubt, let them walk away. The world isn't meant to understand you while you're building. They only understand the finished product, the results, the headlines. You don't need validation, you need war with your own weakness. Get obsessed with becoming bulletproof. Get addicted to rising every time you fall, because the man who refuses to stay down, the man who keeps going regardless of pain, of shame, of failure, that man becomes unstoppable. And don't you dare let comfort seduce you again. Don't you dare betray your future for the lie of temporary peace. Comfort is the real killer. It whispers sweet nothings in your ear while it drains your fire. It hands you a pillow while it buries your purpose. Comfort is where dreams go to die, silently, unnoticed. But you are not meant to die unnoticed. You are not meant to leave this world untouched. You are a weapon being built in the darkness, and every failure is a hammer strike sharpening your edge. You think you're being punished? No, you're being prepared. So get up right now, not tomorrow, not after you feel better. Now, get up and move like your life depends on it, because it does. Every second wasted is fuel given to your future regret. And regret, that's the only pain that never heals. That's the only failure that's final. The failure of never trying. You will never forgive yourself for dying as a version of you that never got to see your real power. You will never find peace in a life that played it safe. He who risks nothing earns nothing. Remember that. Say it to yourself every time you feel like quitting. Say it until it burns. You were not chosen for weakness. You were not made to be broken by failure. You were made to use it, to weaponize it, to rise so many times that the world has no choice but to kneel. So go, build, bleed, grind, sacrifice, outwork, outlast, outfight every version of you that settles. And when you fall again, and you will, you stand up again with eyes colder, heart harder, and fire even hotter. That is how champions are born. That is how legacies are carved. That is how failure becomes your fuel. Because in the end, it's not the man who avoids failure that wins. It's the one who walks through it like a storm, looks it in the eyes and says, "You made me."